Hello and welcome. My name is Penny Meckley Porter. I am here in Erie, Pennsylvania, and I'm running a little late. You know that stressful feeling when your computer won't work right? I've got it going right now. But today I'm here to talk with you. This is our third in a series of four little sessions on grief. So this is, anyway, like I said, it's the third. And so this one is called Healing is Possible, because essentially sometimes we're afraid that healing is not possible with grief. But there are things that we can do that can help ourselves in our healing process. And healing is a process, right? It doesn't really just happen. It's something that if we can be active in our healing and understand our healing and understand our grief, then we can help the healing process along. So let's see here. Of course, as we've talked in the last couple of sessions, I'd like you to allow your grief, allow yourself to feel your grief. Of course, it might come and go. Of course, be passionate with yourself. Passionate, well, maybe that. Be compassionate with yourself is what I meant to say. Compassion is always important. Also, seek support. So do talk to other people. Do seek support from a therapist if you need to, or a religious person, or obviously friends. So, as we talk today, we're going to start at the beginning with a little bit of a mindfulness exercise, but really what I'd like you to do today is, as I talk about these different ideas that might help you in your own grief process. There are things that you can do, active things that you can do to help you in your own grief process. I want you to be listening to your own body, because I want you to be tuning into your inner wisdom about what seems like a good idea for you. Because if I suggest something like journaling and you're like, oh, or writing a letter to the deceased and you're like, oh, if you have an intrigued kind of response, then that's your inner wisdom saying, maybe I should consider that. And if your response is more like this, eye roll, crossing your arms, then that can be your inner wisdom saying, that really doesn't resonate with me. So that's what today is about, listening to your inner wisdom to determine what of these ideas might resonate with you. And any idea that does resonate, you can always modify it. You don't have to do it exactly the way I say, but you can give it some thought and modify it. So, I'd like to start by having you be sure you're comfortable in your chair, wiggling around if that would feel good, feet flat on the floor, hopefully that's comfortable for you. Taking a couple breaths, not necessarily with your eyes closed, but just taking a couple of regular breaths and checking in with your body, feeling your body as you inhale and exhale at your own pace. Inhale, exhale at your own pace. And then I'd like you to take two more regular breaths, but I'd like you to exhale longer than usual. A little bit longer exhale. Ready? Inhale. Exhale. Longer. Again, inhale. Exhale. Longer. Great. All right. First, this year, it's 2021, and we've had a very difficult year. We've had a lot of death. And when we have had death, oftentimes we were not able to participate in a way that we normally would have participated. And the rituals that we have around grief, around death, are very important. Every society has rituals around grief and death. And our societies here in the US, oftentimes we have a funeral, of course. Perhaps we meet ahead of time at the funeral home. Perhaps we have an open casket. Perhaps we have a closed casket. Perhaps when you hear about the death, you go to your loved one's home and spend time with them and bring food. Perhaps you would have normally hosted that event. So many of these things, if not all of them, didn't happen. So if you are in that category where you have a loss from the last year and the normal rituals of grief couldn't happen, then perhaps they're still going to happen and you're going to have a memorial service, and I'd encourage you to participate in that, even if the loved one died over a year ago. But if that's not possible, I would encourage you to have your own kind of service. And it can look however you would like it to look. But here are some ideas. Perhaps your loved one died far away across the country and you're not going to go to California now. What you can do is decide on a date and a time. Let some of your friends or family know what you're up to. Perhaps invite a friend or family member, whether they knew the deceased or not, but they know you. Perhaps ask them to be present with you. You could have a couple of flowers, a candle, perhaps a photo. And then you spend time remembering your loved one, perhaps addressing your loved one, perhaps telling a story about your loved one. So there you are, being together with a friend or family member. Perhaps it's just you. But you're taking time out of your normal schedule to remember your loved one and remember how much they meant and mean to you currently. So that's having your own ritual. You could have a meal in their honor. There may be other things you can think of that you could do to honor that person. So another idea is to stay connected with your loved one. So some people do talk to their loved one every day. Some people took some time to write a letter to their loved one, or write down a key phrase or two that was really meaningful between them. I've heard of people putting letters in a bottle and sending it off. I always hate the idea of, putting balloons up in the environment because they get stuck on trees and all that. However, if that would be something that you could do that would help you feel connected to your loved one, sending a purple balloon off in their name, or getting some flowers and laying them in the lake to be carried away, or in a river to be carried away. It's things that you do to kind of just be thinking about your loved one. So staying connected with your loved one. I visited with a friend in Brazil a couple of years ago, and her 75-year-old grandmother routinely sat in the garden every evening at sunset, had a drink. It was like one of those little mini beers, had a drink, and that is where she always sat with her husband to have a drink. And so she made a point of doing that most days. There were some days, I think, where she had to be someplace else. But most days she would sit in this meaningful place and do the thing that she and her loved one, her husband, had done together. That's another idea. And then she went about her day. Sitting in the garden. So there's an organization that you can find on the internet. It's called The Dinner Party. And they are an organization that tries to help people remember their loved one. And it helps to connect someone who's lost someone with others in town who have lost someone and who want to continue to have a meaningful connection with that loved one, but also develop meaningful connections with other people who are going through grief. So look it up, The Dinner Party, if you're interested, but I'll read a little bit about it. The Dinner Party aims to help grieving people thrive after loss. It organizes community dinners where each person brings a favorite dish that reminds them of their loved one. Perhaps it's the recipe your loved one used to make for you. Maybe it was their favorite dish. But by coming together in the community, you can share your loss with others and also help them heal. Another idea, of course, is journaling. As a therapist, we always come back to journaling, but then journaling really resonates with some people, and with other people it doesn't. So if it really resonates with you, it could be a great idea. Art, creating art or music, viewing art or music could be something you do to stay connected to your loved one. Volunteering, perhaps, or traveling. Something that was meaningful to your loved one and or meaningful to the two of you together. Those things can help to remember your loved one and to stay connected to them. Another thing I would like to mention is encourage you to plan ahead for special days. So you are on a journey of healing. Some days will be easier than others. The grief really can come in waves. Sometimes it's kind of smaller waves that wash over you, but really it can be like a big wave, like a tsunami that kind of bowls you over, right? And so on really meaningful days, perhaps the anniversary of your loved one's death, right? Or of course there could be other meaningful days. On really meaningful days, it's good to plan ahead for yourself. So it might be a good day to take off work. It would be a good day to have your loved ones, other loved ones, check in with you. It would be a great day to plan to be with supportive people if you'd like to be with people. Be sure it's really supportive people who won't need you to behave in a certain way on that day. If you're sad, if you go to lunch with your friends and you end up with kind of tears streaming down your face, I want you to be with friends who don't mind that. They don't need you to have to be happy. So that's another piece of it. Don't plan something that requires you to be okay, because you might not know, well, you probably don't know whether you'll be okay that day. You know, by okay, I put that in quotes. You might be kind of okay that day and move through your day as if it's a relatively normal day with this big thing in addition. Or you might be a mess. You could feel devastated. You could be in excruciating pain. And so you really want to kind of plan for yourself to have some flexibility on that day. Have your loved ones, other loved ones, checking in on you. So, as I said at the beginning, perhaps something here resonated with you. You could think of other ideas. I personally love the idea of getting some flowers, going to a stream, a river, a lake, and taking those flowers. For me, I would just take pieces of the flowers, like, even just the flower itself so it'll float. I would probably take the stem off. I would take the flower head so it would float, and I would set it on the water and let it be carried away as a way of remembering my loved one. Something I did over the weekend is it was the 1-year anniversary of my mother's death, and my sisters and I met, and what we did, I'm a little sheepish to admit this publicly, but I guess it's fear of judgment. But anyway, we had a little picture from her funeral last year, the kind they give out at the funeral home. And I took the little picture. I cut off the date of birth and death. It just had my mom's name at the bottom. I kind of cut around the picture, and then we took that picture with us for our whole weekend. We would set the picture there of my mom with her name. When we went to a restaurant, we'd set the picture there. and we'd address ourselves towards mom a little bit, but then we'd just have a nice time together. And then thinking of mom, we went on a hike and we brought mom along with us. And it felt a little funny to, just be carrying around this picture of mom. It reminded me of Flat Stanley. But it felt really meaningful to us, and, we may do it in the future. So I encourage you to find a way for you to remember your loved one. Next week, we will be back again. It's our fourth. It's called Recognizing and Healing Collective Grief, right? Because we've been in the midst of some collective grief during this past year. And I just want you to kind of recognize that, know it's a thing, kind of like after 9/11, that was really a thing. And then we can be healing together, and I hope you'll join me. Thanks so much.